So hi everybody, my name is Christal Campbell. I'm the Stormwater Education Coordinator for Dane County Land and Water Resources Department and the Madison Area Municipal Stormwater Partnership, of which, also known as MAMSWaP, of which McFarland is one of the members. So MAMSWaP, or the Madison Area Municipal Stormwater Partnership, is just a partnership of about 20 municipalities who work together under, they all fall into the same stormwater, municipal stormwater permit, and have the same requirements under that permit, one of which is to do some information education around stormwater and trying to reduce stormwater into our lakes, rivers, and streams and improve the quality of the stormwater in our lakes, rivers, and streams. So thanks for having me. Before I jump into talk about leaves, I'm not sure how many of you, Tim, I know you have background in stormwater, but how much background you all have in stormwater, what stormwater is, or even, where our water goes and how it travels through the landscape. So I'm going to start off by just giving a little background information on stormwater to get everybody up to speed. I can just click through this. Maybe not. Oh, the down arrow. I'm sorry, I'm used to using. Okay, no problem. So the reason we even talk about stormwater, and stormwater is even an issue, is because our landscape has been changing for quite some time. So I just like this picture. It's a depiction of what New York, Manhattan might have looked like, thousands of years ago. Obviously no development, lots of natural areas, and what it looks like today, and how it's changed obviously over the years. And when you change a landscape like that, you really change how the water flows through that landscape as well. So kind of bringing it back a little more local, this is actually where the arrows are. This is imagery from 1937. Dane County has this wonderful resource called DCI maps, and it has aerial photography throughout the years. So on the bottom is 1937, and you can see the arrow points to this location here at the library. And then you look at the top, and that's 2020, and that's the same location here at the library. And I just show this because to show you how the landscape has changed here locally, and it's changed quite a bit in the McFarland area. It was back in 1930s. It was mostly agriculture, and you can kind of see that here, and then some, much more forested areas, and those darker areas. It's a little hard to see on here, but not a lot of development. Surprise, surprise, right? Back in 1937, and then how it's changed to what it looks like today, or 2020. Lots of developments, lots of roads, lots of hard services, lots of buildings, streets, and so forth. So when you make those changes to the landscape, you really change how that water flows in the landscape. And in natural systems, or back early 1900s, when we had more natural areas, that the rainwater that falls just falls slowly. It infiltrates, soaks into the earth, and when it soaks into the earth, it recharges our groundwater source. And here in central Wisconsin, and most of Wisconsin, unless you live along the Lake Superior or Lake Michigan coast, our drinking water comes from groundwater. So we want to make sure to replenish that groundwater source, and making sure that the water that falls infiltrates as much as possible. It also slowly, soaks through the soil and through the land, through the dirt, and slowly makes its way back to our lakes, rivers, and streams. That's how it was done back in the day when we had a lot more natural areas. As we start to develop those areas, you can kind of see by these four graphics here. The upper left-hand corner, again, all natural area. You barely see any runoff. So when I say runoff, I mean just rainwater or snow melt that runs off the land. And when you have a lot of natural area, impervious surfaces we call it, you barely get any runoff, and most of that water does infiltrate. Moving on to the upper right, a little bit of development down through, to the bottom right. You're moving to a very highly urbanized area on the bottom right, where almost all of the water is running off and it's not infiltrating. So what happens when that water runs off? That water that runs off our rooftops, our driveways, even our lawns sometimes, and our streets, it's called stormwater runoff, and it carries whatever is in its path with it. And eventually makes its way to our storm drains. So the pictures to the right are storm drains. You probably don't notice them. I'm sure you know what they are, but you probably aren't looking for them. And they're designed to be kind of invisible, and they're designed to take water away, make sure we don't have, streets that are flooding. Unfortunately, that water carries other things with it. So whatever's in its path, it'll carry with it. It can carry gases and oils and pollutants and, even garbage. It's pretty powerful. So whatever goes down those storm drains ends up in our lakes, rivers, and streams, primarily without getting treated. We here in the Madison area and South Central Wisconsin, we have separate storm sewer systems and sanitary sewer systems along kind of Lake Michigan or near Milwaukee. There still are a lot of combined sewer systems where the storm water and the sanitary water, or what you flush down your toilets, the storm sewer, sanitary sewers are combined. That's not the case here. So when that happens, that water is treated first, but in most of Wisconsin, it is not. We have separate stormwater systems. So whatever ends up in those storm drains ends up in our lakes, rivers, and streams. So that's a problem. And the big problem is when we have too much water running off, that can cause flooding. And it's a lot of water that's running off our surfaces. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of how much water might run off kind of an average rooftop. So I'm calling an average rooftop about 1,800 square feet, and just in a 1-inch rain event. So a 1-inch rain event these days is not really a big rain event. We're seeing a lot of large rain events lately. But just a 1-inch rain event can produce, over 1,000 gallons of runoff. And that's just from, an 1,800 square foot rooftop. So that doesn't include the driveway or the streets, the sidewalk, or, any lawn or other hard surfaces that water might run off of. And then you can actually calculate your own runoff off your property using this USGS website here if you're interested. So when we have too much runoff, it can cause huge problems. It can cause flooding. We've seen a lot of that. The 2018 floods, I guess everybody kind of thinks about those. That's actually a picture in Madison. And then not only can it cause flooding, but water is really powerful. So when water comes through, really fast, it can erode away stream banks. It can erode away soil and dirt off of construction sites or where you have kind of open soil. And when you have all that pollution going, into our waterways, it can cause a lot of pollution. So believe it or not, dirt actually, or sediment actually is a pollutant. So it has a lot of phosphorus in it, and phosphorus is really what's causing the greening of our lakes. And just 1 pound of phosphorus can actually produce up to 500 pounds of algae. So keeping soil in its place is really important for us. Even though soil is natural, what's the problem with soil? Well, the phosphorus is the problem with soil, and it can really cause some headache for our lakes. And then, like I said, it's not just nutrients, but also, just garbage and other pollutants that end up going down our storm sewer system into our waterways. And then it can obviously, that polluted water can harm wildlife and deplete oxygen. So what are some solutions to that? We want water to stay where it lands, and we want that water to soak into the soil rather than run off. We want to make our kind of cityscapes or urbanized areas act a little bit more like our natural areas. So a couple of ways to do that are just create more ways for that water to actually infiltrate. Maybe add some native plantings, downspout gardens, rain gardens to your landscape to kind of hold that water and capture that water and let it slowly soak in, kind of intercept that water before it runs off your property. Even redirecting a downspout is an easy thing to do, making sure it goes at least on your grass and not hard surface. And then putting in a rain barrel is another great idea. Something else besides trying to keep that water where it lands, not all of it's going to stay where it lands. Obviously, we have a lot of hard surfaces, but making sure that whatever does go down our storm drains is as clean as possible, so that we're only sending clean water to our lakes, rivers, and streams. So only rain down the storm drain, we like to say. So some things are to cover bare soil, keep that soil in its place, prevent it from eroding away, pick up after pets, dispose of trash, and hazardous chemicals properly. Use a little bit of salt. Salt is actually a pollutant, and it's increasing our chloride concentrations that are coming from road salt, and other sources are increasing in the Madison lakes. If you do use fertilizers or herbicides on your lawn, you know, if you have a lot of lawn, maintaining a lawn that's at least vegetated. This is a picture of one that's not vegetated, where you have a lot of space, bare space, and water can run off pretty easily there. And then what we're here to talk about is keeping leaves out of the streets before the rain and what kind of impact that has. So what's the issue with leaves? A lot of time I get that question, and I get that question about soil. Soil's natural. I get that question about leaves. Leaves are natural, trees are great, and they are. Trees are wonderful. They actually can suck up a lot of water and help a lot of water to infiltrate. The issue with leaves is that when we have leaves in an urbanized environment, and those leaves tend to collect in the fall along the curb line, and then that curb line is there to transport water, and that water is transported through those leaves, or kind of washes through those leaves. Those leaves then that water going through the leaves creates leaf tea, and I have a little leaf tea container, and I left it in the car, but you can see what happens there. So it creates leaf tea, just like you would make tea at home. Same thing happens here, and that leaf tea contains a lot of phosphorus. We just talked about phosphorus, and that's a nutrient that's really, really bad for our lakes, rivers, and streams, and it causes a lot of valuable pollutants. So and then on top of the fact, it's not just phosphorus, but it's in a form dissolved phosphorus, and dissolved phosphorus is almost impossible to get. We can't take that out of water very easily. So it's like candy for algae. And that leaf tea, again, then it goes down our storm drains, down our storm sewer system, and into our lakes, rivers, streams, and ends up greening our lakes like you see here. So we're really fortunate in the Madison area to have, we partnered with USGS back in, it was 2015, MAMSWaP, or the Madison Area Municipal Stormwater Partnership, and several other municipalities actually contributed funds for this LEAF study that USGS and the City of Madison led. And really, I just want to give a little background on this LEAF study, because what came out of it was really important and helped drive our outreach efforts around leaves. So the goal of the study was to determine if removing leaves from the street before the rain, how much of a difference that actually makes in reducing phosphorus to our water bodies here in the Madison area. So just a little background on it. They selected 2 study sites, paired basin studies. So 2 neighborhoods that had similar density of trees and size of trees. They both had ash and maple trees, and the trees were kind of focused or we're interested in and are a problem for us are the trees that are like road trees or terrace trees, we call them. They're the trees that are in, between the sidewalk and the street. And, we always say, keep your leaves out of the street. So if you live in an area where they have leaf collection and you're supposed to put your leaves on the side of the street, and the municipality actually picks them up. I don't know if, does McFarland have leaf collection here? I can't remember if they do or not. I don't think so either. But, what we're really worried about, yes, sometimes those leaves actually get into the street. They do in Madison have leaf collection, but there's these leaves that just fall into the street naturally, right? There's all these big trees in the terrace, and who takes ownership for those leaves? Nobody really. But those leaves are really causing quite a few problems, especially in urbanized areas where you have a lot of those large road trees. So what they did in the study is they selected these 2 areas. And in one area, they gave it like the gold treatment, and we will never be able to replicate that. No municipality will be able to replicate that. But before every rain, they went out and they swept and they, used the blowers, and they cleaned that street, as much as they possibly could before the rain to make it as clean as possible. And then they compared that to the other area where they actually asked residents not to do anything, just let the leaves fall. And then they monitored the water flowing through those areas into the storm sewer inlets. So what they found, and it's pretty amazing how substantial a difference there was. So if you look at the top graph, This is the total amount of phosphorus that was in that water that they monitored. And you can see between September and November, so peak leaf fall, you can see the amount of phosphorus in the area where there were no leaves removed. That was kind of the control area. It was extremely high. And then you compared that to the kind of gold standard where they cleaned the streets before the rain at every time it rained, before the rain, they cleaned the streets. And what a substantial difference there was in the amount of phosphorus. So this is, for somebody like me who works in the outreach world and education world, this is gold. So I have this, data now to support our efforts, and it's pretty amazing and pretty substantial. So what came out of this study is just, we now have the data, and this was a multi-year study, and even they're actually doing more work around leaves right now. USGS is more around different ways to clean streets and what might be most effective. But what came out of this study is that we really have data now to support that leaves are a really significant source of phosphorus from the urban environment in urban stormwater, and that nearly 60% of the phosphorus from the urban environment can come from leaves in the fall. So there's a lot of sources of phosphorus that are getting into our waters. There's agricultural sources, erosion, like we talked about, construction site erosion and other erosion that also contributes to the phosphorus in our waters. But from the urban environment, it's a huge source of phosphorus from the urban environment in these areas where you have a lot of these large road trees or terrace trees. And we can now say that, if we can get those leaves out of the street in a timely fashion, just if there was no rain, we wouldn't care about those leaves at all. But because, just getting those leaves out of the street before big rain events, that can really help. And just kind of using that data that you just saw, it can reduce the phosphorus load by almost 80%. So we're just comparing, again, that area that didn't have any treatment, didn't get leaves taken off the streets, to the area that had kind of that gold standard. So it's, if you're trying to do something to help keep our waters clean and reduce that phosphorus, this is something, residents can do, and it's an action that really can have a huge impact. So we took that information and we actually did another little social science experiment in the city of Middleton back in 2015-16 to get a sense for, would people be, would they be open to and would they take action if we sent out reminders before rain events? Would they actually remove those leaves from the street? And we were fairly surprised and happy that a majority of people did actually take action if you were given those reminders, because you're asking somebody, this is kind of building off social science research, is, if you can give somebody a very specific task and you tell them exactly when to do that and you give them reminders to do that, that's a very effective way to get people to change their behavior. I'm not going to talk about that study now, but between the data that USGS and the City of Madison study gave us, and then that little social science study that we did, that's how we developed our Leaf-Free Streets for Clean Waters program. So what we're doing is we're really trying to partner with municipalities and residents to engage residents in actually taking action and removing street leaves before the rain. And if you live in an area where you have no trees along your terrace, those are not the areas we're targeting, obviously. We're really trying to target areas that are usually kind of close to downtown centers where there's high density, residential. That's usually where you're going to find your large terrace trees and kind of older communities. So those are the groups we're targeting, or areas that we're targeting. And we have all kinds of resources to help promote leaf-free streets for clean waters. So, we at the county, we don't do any we don't maintain streets as far as, removing leaves or keeping streets clean or anything like that. So we are really working through our partners and our MAMSWaP partnership. We work with municipalities and providing them some resources to get the word out locally. So to make it as easy as possible for groups, and this isn't just municipalities, but it's also, you know, neighborhood associations or watershed groups or environmental groups, to help spread the word through their communication channels. We have these toolkits, and we have a partner toolkit for leaf-free streets. Make it very easy. You don't have to, you know, be an expert in leaves or, you know the USGS study, you know, inside out, but we just let people know, you know, what is the target audience. Talked about that. It's really these areas that have a lot of large road trees, high density of large road trees or terrace trees. What are the key messages to share? We want people to understand that, you know, these leaves in the street really can cause problems for our lakes, and to get them out before rain events. And then we have a bunch of tools that people can use. So our big one really that we're trying to promote is our leaf-free streets rain alerts. So you can sign up through our system to receive text or email alerts only between October 1st and November 30th. So peak leaf fall. And we'll send out a rain alerts. We kind of monitor the weather for you, and we send out these alerts 1 to 2 days before a significant rain event. So if it's just going to have a little, you know, little trickle of rain or a little sprinkle, we're not going to send this out. So on average, we might send out. We started this back in 2018, I believe. You know, we might send out anywhere between like 5 and 8 alerts between October 1st and November 30th. And then we have door hangers. We have some template articles that you can use and modify if you want. Send it out through, you know, your communication channels, newsletters, things like that. We have some flyers. We also provide just some, you know, social media graphics, things like that. And we have some signage as well. So that top picture up there is the sign, a yard sign people can have free of charge if they want to. They can request it. And McFarland actually has some customized signs for this area here, so you can request those if you want. So that's leaf-free streets. Does anybody have any questions about leaf-free streets? Okay, and I also wanted to share a little bit of information about our new adaptive storm drain program. So we just launched this program back in November of last year, and really, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but we're trying to get people to take ownership of the storm drains that are maybe in front of their home, especially ones that might collect a lot of debris, you know, from time to time. And we want them to adopt them, just similar to like adopting a street or something else along those lines. You can go on to so McFarland was one of 5 pilot communities that joined on right away in November. It's been going fairly well. We've added a couple of additional communities, Middleton and Middleton and Cross Plains were added, and DeForest actually just recently at the end of the summer. So now we have 8 communities. I keep thinking 7, but 8 communities within the Dane County area that have are offering the Adoptive Storm Drain program in their communities. So it's easy. You create an account, you adopt a storm drain nearby, and then we ask that you kind of just keep an eye on that storm drain once a month, minimum of once a month. Just head out there and clean any debris that's there, and then report it back and report, you know, how much, an estimate of how much you removed and what type of debris there was on our website. And then, you know, we also just want you to kind of keep an eye out on that storm drain. So there should be nothing entering our storm drains except for water or, you know, rainwater or runoff. Especially during dry events. If it's dry out, it's not raining, there should not be anything going down that storm drain. And if there is, that shouldn't be happening. So you should go ahead and report that. Or if you see some type of discharge even during a rain event that doesn't look quite right, we want you to report that as well. So these are some. Oh, I'm missing one picture in my slide, but that's a picture of one of the McFarland residents. She's actually a colleague of mine too. And then for some reason I'm missing the Girl Scout. That didn't come up, but there's also a Girl Scout troop in McFarland that adopted 10 storm drains just recently, I think back in April, and they're taking care of those storm drains. And the Village of McFarland has actually been a really great partner. It's been fairly successful here in the Village of McFarland. I have a few numbers here from McFarland. So overall, we have about 200 storm drains adopted in these 8 communities. overall. But in McFarland, there's 69 storm drains that are adopted by 20 volunteers. So pretty good turnout here in McFarland. There's a lot of interest in the program and a lot of engaged residents. It's pretty neat. And then I just checked today, and there was about 140 cleanings reported. So we just ask that even if you look out there and there's nothing out there, that you just report that oh, we took a look and there's no debris, and if if you have done some cleanings, to report that as well. So yeah, about 140 cleanings reported so far by McFarland residents. And if you're interested in that program, you can go to our website, ripple-effects.com, and you can sign up there. And all the lead-free streets materials are there as well. So I can't come to an event like this and not give a little bit of information on some of our other programs too. So just a plug for some of our other outreach, education outreach programs. We kind of talk about them seasonally. So in late winter, early spring, it's all about plant daying. We're really trying to encourage those native plants, planting those native plants, because they really can help with infiltrating that water and helping that water to soak into the ground, which is what we want. We want that water to remain where it lands and not run off the property to begin with, so it doesn't cause a problem. We sell native plants. We partner with Agricole and sell native plants for, I think they might be $270. They might go up in price a little bit like everything else. $275 a plant, I think, is what it's going to be this year or next year. We have a free native plants program where we donate native plants to school and community projects. We usually have some type of educational training, so a rain garden workshop, or last year we had a native landscaping workshop where we talked about native landscaping and how to do it. So all that information is there on our website. In the spring and summer, we transition more towards rain barrels. We now sell rain barrels, and McFarland actually gets reimbursed $30 per rain barrel. So if you're interested in a rain barrel, we hope to have them back in stock next week. They have been extremely popular. I can't keep them in stock. So, and then presentations and the storm drain barrel program, of which we have one here in McFarland, a storm drain barrel, which is pretty cool. So really just kind of getting the word out there that whatever goes down our storm drains ends up in our lakes, rivers, and streams, and the importance of keeping it clean. Not only the storm drain itself, but all that water that ends up down there. We talked about lead-free streets, and then Wisconsin Saltwise is our kind of winter campaign where we're really trying to reduce the amount of salt that we use on our roads so that those chlorides don't get into our waterways. And then just some educational resources that we have that I wanted to let you know about. We have a tabletop rainfall simulator, and it's we don't normally check it out, but I can come in and do presentations with it or demonstrations. It's a great tool to show how land use actually impacts water quality. So we have, you can see it's up in the upper left-hand corner there. We have different samples, prairie sample, we have a lawn sample, tilled garden sample, covered pavement, and we pour water on there and you see what actually happens, how much infiltrates and how much actually runs off. And people just really get it then, because it's all connected. Everything we do on our land impacts our water. So that's a really great tool. It's been a useful tool for us. We also have just a lot of resources online. We have videos and planting plans and instructions if you're looking to build a rain garden or a downspout garden, or even grow plants from seed, native plants on your own. And then we have some, our EnviroScape is a watershed model that we check out to anybody who wants it. And it just kind of shows how water flows over land and the impact that our actions on land can have. And then we also have some trainings and recording or demonstrations that are recorded on our website as well. That's all I really have, unless anybody has any questions.
Just add a couple of things. So first would be with the Adopt a Storm Drain program. They've pulled on Middleton, and that happens to be where I am, and I joined that recently, and it's been super nice. I one of the kind of ancillary benefits, in addition to everything that you said, is I'm able to kind of chat with my children as well about kind of getting them involved, getting them kind of a little bit educated on it, and having that be part of it has been kind of nice. And talking to their little neighborhood friends and neighbors that you see on the way too has been kind of a useful part of the experience as well.
Yeah. So it's not only I find, and I do know some people who've adopted and they live in an area where there's just not much on their storm drains. I think they're getting like not frustrated, but they're like, well, I don't have much to do, there's nothing in there. But it's it's been such a good educational piece as well, just to kind of make that connection with people to be like, you know, whatever goes down your storm drain ends up in our lakes, rivers, and streams. And so even just having that conversation and being able to kind of promote the program that way has been useful in itself. And I do know a lot of, it's been really fun to see the groups get involved. We have a few Girl Scout troops that are involved. Do you live in the Saxwood area?
I'm in Fox.
Okay. So the Saxwood area, there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 kids that are all like, this is like this big camp now, or this big group that's taking care of these storm drains. So it's been kind of fun to see that energy too, and try to get kids engaged in the effort too. I don't know, and I've seen, and I've also heard from other parents that their kids are involved in it as well. You know, when they go out and clean the storm drain or check out, they'll have their kids be like, you know, go check on the storm drain. It's going to rain tomorrow or whatever. It's just, it's a good conversation starter. Yeah, definitely. So.
And then the other thing, Middleton specific, or McFarland specific, I would add is you'd mentioned, you know, kind of peeking your head in there and taking an eye. If you see, you know, sort of running water or something like that, when you are typically not expecting to see it, that is certainly a good thing to report. Middleton or McFarland Public Works would be, you know, the place to report that. The administration too would kind of get you to the right spot. The one additional comment I would have on that is there's been a lot of, and residents in these areas like Marsh Woods and LVM are probably pretty aware of it, but there's been quite a bit of direct connections of sump pumps to the storm drain system here in McFarland. It's kind of you know, greening up of the curb and gutter and icing issues and stuff like that. So that's helped, but then you would see water running in there kind of year round at times.
Yeah, there are situations where you might see water.
So, but even if
there's
you're expecting that that's the case, I would encourage people to report regardless, because we'll be able to know.
Yes, definitely. And we actually, so we have a new reporting site as of last year on the Dane County Land and Water Resources Department site, where it's a county-wide reporting site. So you can, if you do see something, it's called illicit discharge, and that's just a mouthful. I don't even like to use that term because nobody knows what it means, but it's just really, you know, the bottom line is you should see nothing really, except for very few circumstances where water is draining down into your storm drain, especially if there's no rain. There are a handful of reasons that should happen, or exceptions to the rule, excuse me. So if you see something draining down your storm drain, especially if it's not raining, you probably should report that. Who knows what it is? You know, sometimes we see concrete washout, which is like, or painting companies sometimes washing their materials. We get calls on that sometimes. That's not legal. That shouldn't be happening. So please do report it if you do see something. Yeah. And then if it is raining, that water should be clean and clear. I mean, maybe if there's some soil erosion or something, you might see, you know, a little cloudy. But if there's some color to that, or bubbles or anything like that, that's not supposed to happen. And again, that water, for the most part, you know, goes right to our lakes, rivers, and streams. It may stop along the way, settle into a stormwater pond before getting, you know, discharged into a lake, river, or stream, but that water is going to get, and those pollutants are going to get to our lakes, rivers, and streams. So please do report them. Thanks for